Welcome to Season 5 of the Get Out of Teaching podcast, presented by Larksong Enterprises. This podcast is for teachers who are considering leaving education but feel like they have no options. I'm your host, Elizabeth Diakos. I'm a career transition coach who guides overwhelmed teachers out of education and into a life they love. In this season, we'll be speaking with wellbeing experts who can help you to stay well as you plan your exit. But I also want to share something with you. Many teachers want to escape the classroom, but still have a passion to teach. If that sounds like you, then consider becoming a learning success coach. Founder Kahila Sivas has created a business in a box. It's a 12-week guided process to build and launch your independent coaching practice with no profit share or franchise fees. Be inspired by the latest stories of teachers who are leaving the classroom at www.learningsuccesscoaches.com and get out of teaching with confidence. Episode 22. Hi everyone and welcome to the show. On today's show, I'm really excited to be speaking with Luke George, who is a wellbeing expert and a school culture expert. Welcome to the show, Luke.
Hello. How are you, Elizabeth? And fantastic to be here. Really going to be a great little session.
Yeah, great. Thank you for, it's great to have someone with your expertise and level of experience to come on the show. So tell us a little bit about what got you into teaching in the first place.
When I started teaching, is that what was the question?
Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting story, isn't it? Really, what got me into teaching. I don't know how many people can actually remember back into year one, but apparently in year one, I said to my then teacher, would you believe his name was Mrs. Wise? There you go. Wise by name, wise by nature. And she remembers saying to my mum that even as a year one student, I wanted to be a teacher. And I do remember having those thoughts about organising the desks and what I'd do at the front. But that was in the days of chalk and blackboards, if you can remember back that far.
I do remember that back that far. Thank you.
Yes, a few of us do. And I think I've always had that sense of wanting to help educate. I'm a very strong believer and very passionate that education is the way that we can move people, and any problem can be solved by education. And I think that's just ingrained in us as teachers. We have that passion to help others, and our calling is down to little people or those middle-sized people. So I then began my teaching career straight out of college and went to Halls Creek, which is in the Kimberleys, which was a very, very interesting experience from a 21-year-old or 20-year-old from the western suburbs of Perth into the cultural exchange that you get in a remote community like Halls Creek.
So can you just give, for the international listeners who won't be familiar with the Kimberleys, can you give us a little bit of a picture about what that looked like for you?
Yeah, sure. So the Kimberleys are in the very top of Western Australia, and this is where we have our Indigenous and Aboriginal communities. It's predominantly all the work in that particular town is to support the Aboriginal communities and our Indigenous leaders, etc. And so it's all government services. So it's very interesting because it's not your normal Caucasian male dominated area. It really is a lot of work to work with Aboriginals and all the different situations that they come across. And as a young teacher, it was really different because all my practice were with in Perth. It's quite different when you go to a remote community. Very remote. Like we're talking, all our food had to be trucked in. Everything has to be bought in, so really different.
And Perth's quite a sort of wealthy, middle class part of the world, so that would be a huge culture shift. How far is that? What's the distance that you would travel from Perth up to the Kimberleys?
Yeah, so I think from Perth to the top of Western Australia would be like I reckon it must be about 4,000 kilometres, 4,000 kilometres. Yeah, it's at the very, very top of WA.
So we're talking like a 4-day drive.
Yeah, Yeah, it takes about 3 days to get up there. Yeah, you do it if you just drive straight. But we were flying up in Cessnas, you know, the small little six seaters.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's like a very compact, like it's just a little aeroplane, lands on the gravel tarmac, which happens to be right next door to the pub. So first thing you do is when you get off the aeroplane, you go to the pub.
Got it. Okay. So
Yeah.
how long were you doing that for?
I did that for a couple of years, and then I came back into a country posting. Then I took a year off and surfed around the world, all throughout America. And then I actually rode a bike from Cambridge all the way down to Crete. And then I came back and did some metro postings. And interesting enough, then I left teaching. After all those years of wanting to be a teacher, I just had this thing inside me to say, hey, what else is out there? What else could I do? And I just took that step forward, and gosh, what have I done since then? 3 or 4 businesses I've built and sold, and now I'm here with my next one, still in education though. Yeah.
So
how
long were you teaching for, Luke, before you actually decided to leave?
6 years I was in the classroom, and then included a year's worth of leave. It was unpaid leave. So
right.
Yeah, okay. 6 sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you came back to Australia and you set up some businesses. Can you tell us a little bit about what you were doing with that?
Yeah. I suppose the interesting thing about that is when I did my ride through from Cambridge to Crete, that was really on a whim. It was like, okay, I can do this. I mean, I did no research, zero research. Literally went down a bike shop, bought a bike, started riding with some Michelin maps, staying off at youth hostels. So I think what that does is it gives you courage and belief within yourself what you can do. And so when I left teaching, I didn't have anything to go to. So I happened to like paving, you know, I did some paving around my house, and I thought, oh, well, I'll open a business. And I literally had a small advert that said Indian Ocean Brick and Turf was the name of the business, landscaping and paving. I got a phone call, went round and said, oh, yes, this is about how much it's going to cost. A total guess, may I add. And that night, I can remember when the lady said, oh, yeah, that's no problem, we'll take that. The lady, that night I had to just go and buy some gear. And the only thing I had at that stage was a ute. So that was as much gear as you had to do any landscaping.
So you looked the part though.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. I had a ute, so the guy must know stuff. So I had to go in and actually go and buy the equipment, the paver, the compactor, the brick saw, the earmuffs, the whole thing. And then away I did. We did that for 4 years, and then I sold that business, and then I started another one. And in the same realm of just saying, I can do this. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned is it's amazing what you can do when you just have a purpose and I can do this. And that was pretty well what I said the whole time.
It sounds like you're very courageous. Like I don't think I would have the guts to do that. Just start up, not really knowing quite what I'm doing, and you know, kind of learning on the job.
Yeah, you do. But I think that's the thing is, if you are going to start anything new, I believe that you just have to take that first step. And it doesn't matter how much information you had, or in this case now, how many YouTube videos you've looked at, you've still got to actually do it. And one of the things is that, and I think one of the things is we get overwhelmed with all the opportunities. But in the truth of the matter is that, as I say to some of my clients, you're comfortable, and then you've got to be uncomfortable, and then you get clarity.
Yeah.
So no matter what we're going to do, you will be uncomfortable. And once you know that that's going to come, there's going to be times when it's harder. But if there's one thing that I found was you need some associates around you that you could talk to, and be super open to feedback. I'll never forget in that first business, because I've had 4. In that first business, we were doing some what we call a screeding that makes all the sands flat so you can put all the pavers down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's called screeding. And the guys across the road, these pavers across the road, actually came over and said, "Hey guys, wow, you're doing that pretty hard. Have you ever thought of this?" And they just had these, they said, "Just go and buy yourself 2 thin pieces of steel, which are called ribbon." He said, "And put that down and it's so much easier."
Right.
Bang.
Pull it across.
All of a sudden.
Yeah.
Yep. All of a sudden, screeds were easier. You used to cut your bound by 2 hours. And you just keep learning along the way, but you've got to be open. And that would be one of my biggest things. I'm a big one for feedback. And I'm always open to listening to, if someone says, "Hey, Luke, you can do it better," I'm like, "Yep, straight away, I'm on." And you've got to have that attitude.
Yeah. Okay.
Very much so.
So you did that for a while. You set up some other businesses, and then tell us about what you're doing right now.
Yeah. So interesting enough, if I use the mantra, do work you love with people you like, making a difference that you want to see. So that pretty well sits with my mantra of how I like to live life. And in that way, I do have a couple of programs, and it's working with education. I have wellbeing for staff wellbeing program. I also have a school culture program where I coach leaders to be better leaders so they can collaborate better. But more so in that area is to empower teachers. And at the basis of teaching is one very simple concept, and it is, I just want to teach. And I think the biggest thing that's happening today are teachers want to teach, but we have all this other compliance and all this other stuff that actually stops me from teaching. And if you can build a culture where the purpose is to empower teachers to be able to teach and to protect them from all the other stuff, I think we'll be able to have better teachers. And at the same vein, we need to have strategies for well-being, as in when I am down as a teacher, or anyone really in any job, in those what I call valley of disappointment, how do I get myself out of that? And one of the strategies I've just talked about was feedback. And I have associates that I speak to. So they're 2 very important pieces, besides a whole lot of strategies that I use to be able to get myself out of the valley and back onto where I want to go. So yeah, I have wellbeing for staff and schools, and I also have building culture. And the basis of that is turning culture into outcomes, using culture to improve performance for students and teachers, rather than another maths program or literacy program, or it's just about empowering teachers. Yeah.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that you're part of the way forward is, once you take action, that actually helps you feel more courageous, because you've realized you've got more capacity than you thought you did, or maybe you've surprised yourself at the capacity that you do have. And then the other thing is that when you get an opportunity to get some feedback from someone else who might have more expertise, to take that on board. But I know loads of teachers who are open to all those things, who go in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to be amazing and loving every minute of it. And then at some point in their career, they just kind of hit the wall and go, "Oh my gosh, I just don't think I can do this anymore." And there's this disappointment and shame almost about making putting all your eggs into one basket that turned out to be not what you thought it was. How do you help teachers in a situation like that? Because I think that's where our listeners are probably sitting right now.
Sure, absolutely. Look, it's a great question. And I think what you do is helping teachers to be able to transition into another world. And I've done it 4 or 5 times, reinvented myself. And it's not easy. It does take a lot of upstairs work. However, I believe anyone can do it. So let's just give you a couple of strategies and pointers. Number 1 is I'm a big believer of purpose. Purpose is one of the big questions that we should ask ourselves. So if I was when I was a teacher, and your listeners would be part of this, is my first thing is, am I achieving my purpose? Do I come to school and do all the things that I want to do? Am I doing it in a way that I want to do it? And if the question is no, I'm not reaching that. Now we've got to consider a bit further. And that particular part is in regards to, what can I do to change the situation? And what can't I do to change the situation?
Right.
And they are two very pertinent questions, because if it's a can, then the thing is, can I just wait one sec?
Sure.
Sorry, viewers, but my dog was in my office and it's just calling me multiple times. I know he's done. But what I can do and what I can't do, and some of the things, like for instance, is you might be overwhelmed with parents and all the emails I give you. You can change that. You can change the way that you respond. You can actually organise your world around making you the better teacher and how you work with your parents. It could be the way all the rules are coming down, whether you've got a voice to be able to change that. And then there are other things that you can't change, like the compliance and all the department and all the extra work. And if that's the part that you get so overwhelmed saying, look, I'm never going to be able to change that, and that's the real problem, then your purpose is no longer your purpose. And so your new purpose is to find that space, and I'll go back to do work that you love with people that you like, making the difference that you want to see. And then your purpose will change to looking for where that can be, where your skills and your talents and what you really want to do can actually be appreciated by others. Now, the waiver or caveat on that is, it will not be easy. Whatever the world of hurt that you're in right now, it doesn't change when you move to another place. It'll be fun and it'll be all good and be great, fresh, but there will be someone in there that's going to upset you. There will be compliance, but it still comes down to how you handle it and whether you're still chasing your purpose. So my big thing would be about purpose and looking at what's stopping you from achieving that. And if it is something that you can't control and you don't want to fight it anymore, your next action is to find your purpose somewhere else. And someone like Elizabeth is that sort of person that can take you down a series of conversations, series of actions that you must take. Now, that's one of the biggest things. People don't want to do all the hard work. We don't want to do the heavy lifting. But if you want to move out of where you are, then you must do the work. And I come back to my regionals is about having people that are around you. And I believe 100% that anyone that has trodden the road, has been there before, that can understand where you're at, they are the people that are worth listening to. You don't want to spend years of this sort of work like I did, falling over, etc. What you want to do is go to someone and say, hey, what can I do? And what I just said is exactly what I would have liked to have said to myself when I was younger.
Hello, same thing here. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing now, because I wish I'd found someone who could help me the way I now support teachers trying to get out, because I just felt so alone. I felt ashamed. I felt grief, and no one understood what I could bring to the table. And so they were, saying, well, why don't you have a portfolio career or something? And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. What are you talking about? I need more guidance than that. Now I know what it is. But, I think that there was a lot of uncertainty, and in the end, I had to find my cheerleaders as well. Like you were saying, you're having a support team. So I have one cheerleader. Her name's Wendy. If you're listening, Wendy, thank you for all your support.
Everyone needs a Wendy.
She's always excited to hear what I'm up to. She always asks me how things are going. She's celebrates with me when, you know, I've got lots of clients that I'm working with, and she commiserates with me when something goes wrong, and she's just always been really a great support to me. And I think you've got to find those people who will be your cheerleaders, because then you've got somebody who's interested in the outcomes that's not just you, and it gives you someone to share your victories and your commiserations with. So yeah, definitely, I love that advice.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
there's a
yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, just while you're speaking there, there's a great book by Andrea Clark, called Future Fit. And she talks in there about having your own board of directors, which is exactly what you were just talking about then, Elizabeth. So that was lots of Wendy's. There's a group of Wendy's around you. And so it's not like it's this new stuff. It's actually, you know, leaders, corporates use it. So Andrea Clark, Future Fit, very interesting book too.
So we'll have to make sure we'll put the link to that in the show notes for this episode, Luke, so that if people are listening, they can go and find that book. Thank you for that suggestion. Okay, so often I get clients come to me and they're in their later career. They may be teaching possibly for 20 or 30 years, and they're nearing retirement. They can't retire yet, or they might be retired, but they're not able to stop working, or they don't want to stop working. They might still want to keep working because they're enjoying work as such, but maybe not, you know, face-to-face teaching. What advice would you give to someone in a situation like that who might be closer to the end of their career? It's not that easy to step out into something new. It's hard to become a novice again in a new, you know, in a new workplace. How would you support someone in a situation like that?
Well, again, I mean, Elizabeth, you've got some great questions. But this is the way I look at it from my experience over a few years. So
that's what we want to hear.
Really, there's
your experience.
I've had a few, I tell you. So there's a couple of things. If you've done your teaching and you've got so many years to go, as in the workforce, and there's a couple of questions that I'd be asking myself is, number one is, do you still do teaching because you need the money? And let's be real about that. And I'm really only here for the dollars. Okay, that's cool. And when I hear that, I say to someone, well, did you know that you could get slightly less, but over here, and you don't need a lot of skill set for it. And that could be in the hospitality game or something along those lines. So that's something that we could look at. If you don't really need the money and you just really want to keep yourself interested and invested in work and obviously for your mind, there are a lot of places that you can go to that are lower skilled that would want your talent. So your talent would be quite high, but they would be looking for someone with this sort of low skill set, and you'll be happy to come on board with that. And my third part would be in regards to something that I've always done. So I've always worked for myself ever since I've left teaching. So that's now been over 30 years or so. I've always found myself working in my own business. And that is actually the other thing you can do, is have that passion to say, I want to take macrame to the world. I want to improve the way. In fact, one of my clients not long ago, same sort of conversation, Elizabeth, and she has now got her own tutorial business for preschoolers, that between kindy and year one, helping them to get an advance in literacy and numeracy. So it's tutoring, but at a very grass level. And she had, within maybe a month, she had 35 clients and paying an hourly rate.
Right. Yeah. So she's training. So they're already at school, or are they about to start school?
So they're sort of, you've got that, they're about to start school or they're at school. So she has that range. And parents are basically saying, and I don't know whether, I'm pretty sure this particular index is around Australia, but in WA, we have an index for early childhood. So as you enter into year one, you do a survey, It's a very
Right.
one-on-one survey. And the teachers will find out 5 things about those students and about their little year ones. And it'll be their physical ability, their verbal ability, so their sounds. And we actually find out physically how they talk, can they put sentences together, can they read letters? And there's 5 domains. Now, some of these children at year 1 are struggling to put a sentence together, struggling to know the alphabet, struggling to know their numbers. That's where she sits. And so the parent says, wow, I didn't realize that. And so it's like this really early tutorial. Now, she opened that business literally, just opened the doors, said, oh, hi, here I am, I'm an ex-teacher. And she started that bang 1 month. She spoke to me the other day and just said, wow. I said, wow, that's fantastic. There is a need. Does it take courage? Yes.
Yeah.
But she fits in that beautiful piece that you were just talking about, Elizabeth, that she's older, she doesn't necessarily need the money, so she's done her work, and this is something she really wants to do. She's doing what she loves, with people she likes, and she's making the difference that she can see. Now, she's obviously older because she's done the years, but to me, that's one of the biggest pieces that I would say is the go-to. And for the reason that I say that is because it doesn't matter whether you go and work for someone, you're still going to have pain. They're going to tell you what time you've got to go to work. They're going to tell you when you can have your holidays. They're going to do all of those things. So you're still going to have pain there, but you can do the same pain by working for your own business or even working for someone like a childcare centre or a consultant with childcare centres. There's a range of things where you can stay in education, but it's your own journey. So hopefully we haven't confused people, but there are options. And as I come back to, your purpose is, what is it that's going to drive you? If it's more money, you can come to WA and drive mining trucks because we need thousands of them. We've got more work over here than you can poke a stick at. But you've got to go away for 2 weeks and then come back for 2 weeks. And you've got to drive a truck, which can be boring. So, you know, they're all options. They're available to anyone.
And it's really hot. Isn't it really, really hot as well?
50 degrees.
Yeah. Oh.
50 degrees.
No.
At the moment, it's quite nice up there. And it's hard. Like it's, you know, you're away from your family. But guess what? You're in good money, but the work's, you know, you don't have any pressure. I'll give you the tip. There's no pressure. But not everyone loves it. So it's finding those options, but you do have to look. You really do. If you're in a spot where you can't get your well-being together, the culture of the school is not good enough for you, and you're not thriving, then your purpose needs to be re-examined. And that's the question you ask yourself.
Yeah. So what other questions should I be asking you, Luke?
I think I've covered a fair few things. You did have one here. You've got this. What's my favourite song? And I was wondering.
Oh,
is this
yeah.
like,
okay. That was my next question. Okay. So what is your favourite song?
Well, it's a couple of things. So number one would be The House of the Rising Sun, The House of the Rising Sun by the Animals, and that's because I could sing it. Another one is Gone Away by Offspring, and that's because, if you don't mind, so I could drum to it.
Nice.
So I'm in a band. And I think my last one would be Mr. Natural by the Mental There's Anything, so I could dance to it. So you've got to have a few songs for different areas.
So you want to be able to sing to it, drum to it, and dance to it. Wow, that's nice.
That's right. You've got to have a song for each one.
Good all rounder. I love it.
Yeah, I reckon I suppose the piece that I find throughout my life is I've avoided stress, and I haven't avoided it as I've pushed it off to the side. I've really learned how to deal with it, and I've taken a lot of strategies within myself. And I think stress is you have what we call eustress, which is stress when we're about to do something exciting. So you have to do a lot of things. So people say, I'm very stressful because I'm going on a holiday, and you're thinking, how could going on a holiday be stressful? You do get stressed because, you know, tickets, passports, getting things together. That's called eustress. Card keys. And then the other stress is the stress that we take on board that we didn't necessarily choose to have. And a lot of that stress is an increase in cortisol, which is bad for you over extended periods of time. It can get overwhelming, which is then sleep deprivation. It just is this domino effect. So stress has been one of those parts in my world I've just worked on making sure it's not part of my world. And I want to be a happy person. I want to be happy for people around me. And I've never left teaching because I was unhappy. I actually left teaching because I wanted to see what else the world could offer. I could look back on my teaching, I could look back on my life and say, wow, maybe I shouldn't have gone. Maybe I should have been a principal because I love teaching. But then I can say, well, what would have that looked like? Would have it been stressful? Would I have gone through all this stuff in my life? Would I learnt more? And the answer, of course, we don't know. You know, sliding doors.
Yeah.
However, I do believe that if stress is a big piece of your life, you really buckle down and say, this is not good enough. There's a line in the sand. It's not normal and it's not good. So how do you change that? And tick off those places and write a list. What is causing you stress? What can you change? What can't you change?
Yeah.
And I believe that the answer is all within ourselves. We just need someone to help you unlock it. People like Elizabeth and myself.
I love it. So Luke, if someone wanted to work with you in a school wanted to work with you, or do you work with individual teachers? Like, how does it work? How would someone get in touch with you? How would they find you?
Yeah. So my website is by-george.com.au, or my email is luke@by-george.com.au. And how do I work with people is I work with schools that then allows me to work with leaders and teachers. So I don't work on a one-on-one. It's just a very difficult thing to do. I don't have a full program for someone to come to say, hey, look, you're going to take me through. Someone like yourself would be more, that's more of your market. But if you're there right now saying, oh my gosh, this could be something that I would like to do, then what we do is say, put me in touch with your school. I can work with your school so you'll get the benefit. And there's a range of things we can do. It's a half-day workshop, a full-day workshop. There's a full partnership, annual contact where I'll work daily, on a weekly basis with staff. So they get the skills, everything I've just spoken about, plus more. So it's more about the school.
And is that something you only do in Western Australia, or is it Australia-wide? Like, how does that work?
It's now with Zoom. It's pretty well Australia-wide, international. It's if I could help a school or a teacher just be able to be that better person within themselves, then I'm in. And as you can understand, I'll find a way to help someone be the best version of themselves more often. And I think that's the most important thing. I want to be a better person more often, because we're all great people, but sometimes we know that we're only what I call like a 20%er, but I know that I'd like to be good for 80% of the time. And believe you me, positive psychology, which is what I did my degree in, it's not about being happy all the time. It's being happy more often, because you've got to go down to be able to get out. So that's all right. But what about if we're down for too long? How do we get out? And that's what we like to get involved in.
I love it. Luke George, thank you so much for coming on the Get Out of Teaching podcast today.
No worries. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. And thank you very much for all your viewers. And I hope you have a fantastic day and your future is crystal clear.
You've been listening to the Get Out of Teaching podcast, presented by Larksong Enterprises, with your host, Elizabeth Diakos. Thanks for listening. If you need more support in your journey out of education, take a look around my website, larksong.com.au, where you'll find free resources, my resume revamp product, and a link to book a strategy call with me to get you moving forward. I've been where you are now, and you don't need to do this alone.